Nightmares is a horror anthology movie from 1983, which is great because that's my favourite kind of era of horror, the mid-80s, and I do love a horror anthology movie. This one was a real surprise because I had never heard of it before, never even heard it mentioned anywhere. It's new from 101 Films, and as soon as I heard about it and had a little read of some of the synopsis, I was quite eager to get my hands on this. This is basically 4 stories put together and called a feature movie. There is no connective tissue. This is something I wasn't used to. Usually you have these kind of stories that tie everything together in some way, shape or form, whether it's people on a train telling this story, whether it is the crypt keeper or something introducing the stories. I was always used to something tying these movies together. This doesn't have it. It just delves right in. And when I looked into it, it was because it was originally going to be an anthology series, and these were made for the pilot type of thing, and it turned out they were a little bit too scary, I believe, for that time, so they repurposed it into a movie, and that is where Nightmares came from. It's basically 4 stories, and they're all varying degrees, as they always are with anthology movies, of whether they're good, bad or indifferent. The first one, Terror in Topanga, is a very familiar story. You have probably heard this urban legend countless times in your lifetime, and it's basically about an escaped madman in a small town, and everybody is fearful of this psychopathic killer that seems to be on the loose, and it's played incredibly straight. And even though it is a familiar story that we've seen done several times, or you've heard the story multiple times, I found this to be one of the more enjoyable segments within the actual movie because of how straight it's played, because of the main protagonist is suspectful of everybody that's out and about. She has to leave the house, has to go out for something, and everybody is a threat to her. And it's just nice how it plays with that kind of theme throughout the little episode of making sure that everybody, when you're a female, can be suspectful of something or other. I don't want to spoil it, but I found this one to be really fun, really atmospheric and really effective. The second story, The Bishop of Battle, stars a young Emilio Estevez as someone who is addicted to, say, video games, and there's this one particular game that he just is determined to beat, and it's all about his obsession, how he is just ruining his family life, how he is determined to beat this game as if it's the most important thing on the planet, and how he's becoming very self-destructive and destructive outwards to other people as well as he battles against this game. Again, it was another fun one. It has some very dated special effects, but they fit in with the sort of style of that time, and they were probably state of the art back then, but they're kind of kitsch and kind of fun now, and even though they look kind of older by current day standards, they're nonetheless effective. And I found this to be another entertaining story, one about how video games rots the brain just as it was that was kicking off at that time. And yeah, it's a pretty good story with a neat twist at the end of it. I was kind of trying to guess what was going to happen. I didn't quite get that, but it was fun. The third story, The Benediction, stars Lan Henriksen as a priest who is having a crisis of faith, and he decides to leave the church, and as he's driving across the desert, he is tormented by this blacked out 4x4 that seems to be terrorizing him. And this is a sort of like crisis of conscience for this priest, and you know how now not to turn your back on it, or if you do, keep your eyes open for signs, because they'll be always there about why his calling was for him. It's kind of effective. It's kind of like The Car or Jewel, that kind of effect. And you know, I found it really fun. There's moments near the end where it gets a little bit ludicrous, but I bought it and I liked it because it did that part of the craziness. The final story is Night of the Rat, and this is probably the one I didn't like the least, but that's the best thing about these anthology movies. It's all subjective. It's up to you what you think of the actual movies. I wasn't keen this one. It's about a housewife and her husband who are terrorised by this rat in their home. It's kind of destructive. They tear down the house hunting for it, and it gets to a really wacky supernatural ending that looks really bad special effects wise. Not as good as the Bishop in Battle, or the Battle of the Bishop, whatever it was called, but it's not as good as that. Ultimately, the disc is great. You can get a widescreen format, you can get a 4:3 format on the disc as well. There is an interview with one of the producers, and there is a commentary that's pretty good. Of course, the booklet is always fantastic with these things, and I just found the movie to be really enjoyable, kind of fun. It's the typical anthology thing where you like some episodes more than you like others, but you know if there's one you don't like, you only have to wait a short period of time before you get another one. There are some good stars in this, some familiar faces, some nice stories, like I said. Ropey special effects that kind of fit one of the stories and just kind of stand out as pretty awful in another one of the stories. But I found another fantastic disc by 101 Films. Terrific. Must pick up if you like horrors from the 80s, you like anthology movies. It's a great one to add to the collection. And just for me, I'm going to rank the stories in say preference for me, and they are pretty easy. One, Terror in Topanga was really good. The Bishop of Battle, number 2. The Benediction, number 3, and Night of the Rat, number 4. Pretty much the order they come in is the way I preferred them. It was really close between Terror in Topanga and the Bishop of Battle. Of course, they're going to get that mixed up. I'd love to know your ranking of this movie if you've never seen it before. What you thought of it, let me know in the comment box below, and I'll see you next time on Man vs. Film.